What's up? Hopefully it's not too noisy in here. I've got a 3D printer in the background making some shit. But today I figured I would revisit a topic that I haven't covered in a while. Just need to remind myself what the hell I called it. Life. Episode 3, 4 maybe. Wait. No, I've done 1, 2 and 3, so this is Life episode 4, the title of which is Here in My Car, I Feel Safest of All. So just a little recap of the last 3 episodes and what it's all about. Previous one was released 10 months ago now, so it's been a big gap, nearly a year since I last hit this topic. So how it all started about 10 years ago, 9-10 years ago now, I started writing, let's call it a memoir, I don't know, some sort of a book, my personal experiences, stuff that I do, get up to, thoughts, whatever. It used to be in a blog, and then I didn't add it to the blog, instead I just had it in a text file or a document on my Google Drive. The first 3 were called First Steps and Learning. You can go ahead and watch that video if you want. The second one was called Misinterpretations of Freedom, and the third one was Life in Dreams. Each one of those videos has its own intricacies where I reread what I'd written nearly 10 years ago and give my modern day thought and opinion on what the fuck I was thinking 10 years ago. So this is number 4, and as I said, it's titled Here in My Car, I Feel Safest of All. Let's get straight into it. It's not a massively long one, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. I'll whiz through. Comments and suggestions are always welcome down below. Since a young age, a very young age, I've had a deep fascination with cars. Driving them, seeing them being driven at their limit, the noise from their engines, etc. I was around 4 years old when a fellow family member deemed it safe enough for me to control the steering wheel of their 2-ton off-roader with the rest of the family on board. Ever since then, I was hooked. What further fueled this instant attraction to any or most mechanisms driven by the internal combustion engine was the fact that the same aforementioned family member had a huge collection of toy cars. Grammar mistake there. Not just any toy cars, but the highly detailed, expensive, not for kids type that no kid has ever laid their hands on except me. They mostly consisted of Mercedes-Benz models from the early to late 1900s, and a few rare types from Japanese manufacturers. My first encounter of the joys of working on engines and vehicles came in the form of a 4x2-foot go-kart with a small capacity 2-stroke engine, like what you might find on a fairly powerful lawnmower. By the time I had laid my hands on this go-kart, it had been used and abused by a generation before me some 20 years earlier, so it wasn't what I'd call in good working order. But it was a masterpiece in the eye of a 5-year-old. It would not start, and the oil reservoir had completely dried over the years, leaving a thick slush of gunge as the slow dripping oil mixed with dust over time. Difficult to read sentence, I don't know why. I assumed it to be broken, a non-runner that has been forgotten over time. My grandfather taught me one single very valuable lesson there and then. At least this is how I interpreted what he was showing me. Nothing is broken unless you have specifically broken it. That's a brave and bold statement. Only after you have failed to fix something should you consider recycling it by means of using parts of it elsewhere, or just cutting your losses and moving on to the next thing. That's slightly more useful. Along with the idea of not accepting something's fate, some would always add the time-tested theory and say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I simply cannot adhere to this idea, not because I just want to take things apart and then have to struggle to fix them as a result of my own actions, but not everything is perfect. Never mind industrial standards for rigorous testing and proofing of concept and ergonomics, for they may suit the average person, but I am far from it. Not so far that you might look at me and think, dear God, that man is not average. I, like everyone else, am unique. Unique and different, just like everyone else. I am unique in my own way, thus making me even more unique. That makes no fucking sense. I apologise. This uniquity, I don't think that's a word, of mine, is found amongst most things I have ever laid my hands on, as well as most things I have owned or do still own. It is harder for me to leave something as is in its standard form, that is to adapt, alter and modify to suit my personal taste, and I would think this is perfectly normal. There aren't many people who follow this idea that not everything is perfect from the factory. For most would buy something, keep it, use it and get rid of it when its usefulness has expired. Yet they will never adapt it to suit themselves even just a little bit. The end. I don't quite know what to make of it, except some of it still kind of applies to me now, today, in this modern day, 10 years after I've written this, and nearly 30 years after obviously experiencing that particular situation with the go-kart. I'm still very much of the idea that anything and probably almost everything can be adapted to suit your own personal needs. Nothing needs to be used in its purely stock form just because it is like that, if that makes sense. Apart from that, there's not too much I disagree with here, except for some of my questionable grammar and sentence structures. They're a bit off. They don't quite roll off the tongue as well as they should. It is what it is. Until the next one, be it 2 weeks or 10 months from now, catch up with you then.